Letting go. It sounds simple, like something you just do. But if you've ever tried to actually do it, you know. It's anything but easy. Letting go of someone you loved. Letting go of a dream that never came true. Letting go of a version of yourself that no longer fits. We are wired to hold on. To people, to routines, to identities. Even to pain. Because to let go is to admit a truth we'd rather avoid. That we're not in control. That some things are already gone. That moving forward means leaving something behind. And yet, there is a moment when clinging starts to hurt more than releasing. Where your fingers, metaphorically or not, are bleeding from holding on too tight to something that was never meant to stay. This episode isn't just about psychology. It's about the deep science, the neurology, the physics, the paradoxes behind what happens when you stop fighting what is. Because letting go isn't giving up. It's a shift, a quiet, almost imperceptible realignment of your brain, your body, and your story. Tonight, as you drift between consciousness and sleep, we'll explore the invisible forces behind release. What neurons do when we forgive. What the brain erases when we grieve. And why surrendering might be the only way to truly grow. So lie back. Loosen your jaw. Unclench your hands. And breathe. It's time to let go. Before we begin, if this kind of storytelling resonates with you, gentle, thoughtful, and a little bit cosmic, you can follow Quiet Cosmos Stories on your favorite platform. And if you feel like it, leave a review or a comment, sharing what this episode stirred in you. Not for numbers, just connection. Now, let's begin. We all think we're in control. We plan. We predict. We build routines like armor. We micromanage our futures like we can outsmart the unknown. But what if we're not holding the wheel? What if we're just gripping the illusion of one? Control is comforting, but it's also a lie. Our brains are pattern-hungry machines. They see connections even when there are none. They crave certainty like oxygen. It's not weakness. It's survival. The same brain that kept your ancestors safe from predators now panics when someone leaves your text on read. It doesn't know the difference between physical danger and emotional chaos. To your nervous system, rejection feels like a saber-toothed tiger. That's why we try to control outcomes. Because deep down, we believe that pain can be prevented if we just plan better. But life doesn't follow our scripts. People leave. Plans fall through. The unexpected crashes in, uninvited. And we're left trying to hold together a world that never promised us anything. Still, we cling to relationships, roles, memories. Not because they're good for us, but because they're familiar. And the brain prefers the predictable pain of what it knows over the terrifying freedom of what it doesn't. Even trauma, if repeated enough, can start to feel like home. And so we stay in patterns. We replay the same old movies in our minds. Because there's a part of us, deep and ancient, that believes if we just think about it enough, we'll change how it ends. But memory doesn't work that way. So why is it so hard to let go? Why does your mind replay the breakup, the argument, The thing you wish you'd said over and over? Because your brain isn't built for peace. It's built for survival. And survival means learning from pain. Every moment that hurt you, your brain archived it. Sensory details, words, tone, smell, where you were standing when it happened, what shirt you were wearing. It locked all of that in. Not to punish you, but to make sure it never happens again. This is how trauma becomes memory, and memory becomes a trap. The amygdala, your emotional alarm bell, keeps the volume high. The hippocampus, your memory architect, keeps rebuilding the room where it happened. And the prefrontal cortex, your logic center, can barely keep up. So you stay in that loop. Not because you want to, but because your brain believes it's helping you. Pain becomes a feedback signal. Unresolved grief becomes a safety protocol. You don't think your way into healing. You feel your way out. But the feelings, they are sticky. Every time you revisit a memory, you don't just remember it. You relive it. And the neural pathways strengthen, like carving a groove in the mind, until it becomes a canyon. That's why letting go feels so unnatural. Because your brain keeps whispering. If you remember it, you can protect yourself. It's not self-sabotage. It's self-preservation gone too far. And the cruel irony? The more you resist, the tighter it holds on. So why is it so hard to let go? Why does your mind replay the breakup, the argument, the thing you wish you'd said over and over? Because your brain isn't built for peace. It's built for survival. And survival means learning from pain. Every moment that hurt you, your brain archived it. Sensory details, words, tone, smell, where you were standing when it happened, what shirt you were wearing. It locked all of that in. Not to punish you, but to make sure it never happens again. This is how trauma becomes memory, and memory becomes a trap. The amygdala, your emotional alarm bell, keeps the volume high. The hippocampus, your memory architect, keeps rebuilding the room where it happened. And the prefrontal cortex, your logic center, can barely keep up. So you stay in that loop. Not because you want to, but because your brain believes it's helping you. Pain becomes a feedback signal. Unresolved grief becomes a safety protocol. You don't think your way into healing. You feel your way out. But the feelings, they are sticky. Every time you revisit a memory, you don't just remember it. You relive it. And the neural pathways strengthen, like carving a groove in the mind, until it becomes a canyon. That's why letting go feels so unnatural. Because your brain keeps whispering. If you remember it, you can protect yourself. It's not self-sabotage. It's self-preservation gone too far. And the cruel irony? The more you resist, the tighter it holds on. But even once the threat is gone, our brains don't always get the memo. They keep looping, replaying the memory, the mistake, the moment it all changed. Why? Because the brain isn't built to move on. It's built to predict, to prepare. So it clings to anything, that might protect us from future pain, even if that means reliving the old one again and again. And here's the cruel twist. Sometimes pain feels safer than uncertainty. We'd rather stay in familiar suffering than risk stepping into the unknown. Because at least with pain, we know what to expect. We've memorized the shape of it. We've built routines around it. We've made it part of us. This is where it gets deep. We talk about pain like it's the enemy, the thing we need to defeat. But often, we hold on to pain because it's the last thread that ties us to something or someone we lost. The grief becomes a monument. The anger becomes armor. The hurt becomes identity. If I let this go, who will I be? If I stop feeling this, will it mean it didn't matter? If I stop hurting, will I forget? You won't. Letting go isn't forgetting. It's not betrayal. It's not weakness. It's not moving on too soon. It's liberation. You're not letting go of them. You're letting go of the loop. You're stepping off the treadmill your mind has been running on for far too long. Because here's the quiet truth that no one tells you. You are not your pain. You are not your trauma. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become in the aftermath. And the moment you loosen your grip, even just a little, something changes. Your nervous system begins to recalibrate. The stories you've told yourself start to soften. And in that softness, there's room for something else. Not to replace what was lost, but to sit beside it. Joy, peace, hope, stillness. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care anymore. It means you're making space for something new. It means you've decided to stop carrying what was never yours to hold. It means you finally trust yourself enough to take the next step without needing to know exactly where it leads. And that's where healing begins. Not in fixing the past, but in releasing your future from its grip. Because the pain never really wanted to stay. It was just waiting for you to say, "It's okay now. You can go." But eventually, the mind gets tired of analyzing, of measuring, explaining, defending. And what's left underneath is something quieter, more personal. Not a theory, but a feeling. Letting go isn't always about ideas. Sometimes it's about pain. The kind that doesn't live in logic, but in memory. And so, from here, we slow down. We step into the part of the journey that's not about what we know, but what we carry. Grief doesn't move in straight lines. It doesn't follow the 5 neat stages we've been taught to memorize. Grief loops. It spins. It vanishes, then crashes back in when you least expect it. One song, one smell, one random Tuesday afternoon, and suddenly you're back in it, right where it hurt, right where it cracked. But here's the truth we don't say enough. Grief isn't a sign that you're broken. Grief is a sign that you loved. And when you love deeply, You don't just get over it. You carry it. You adapt around the weight. You build a life beside it. You learn how to dance again. With a limp. But for most of us, we were never taught how to grieve. We were taught how to avoid, to rush, to stay busy, to be strong for others. We were told, they're in a better place. Or, at least you had the time you did. But what about your place? What about the time you didn't? Grief makes time strange. Some days feel like molasses. Others like they never happened at all. You'll stare at a calendar and realize an entire season passed without you noticing. Because grief lives outside of time. It lives in memory. And memory isn't linear. The brain stores pain like a mosaic. Fragments tucked into different corners. Triggered by moments you can't predict. That's why you can feel fine 1 minute and shattered the next. It's not weakness. It's wiring. And even though it feels endless, the loop isn't there to punish you. It's there to process, to digest what the soul hasn't yet named. You're not stuck. You're healing. In spirals. Returning to the pain from new vantage points. Not to suffer again, but to understand a little more each time. To feel a little less afraid. To gather yourself back into wholeness. One jagged piece at a time. And if you listen closely, you'll notice something else inside the loop. A quiet. A breath between the waves. That's not the grief leaving. That's you returning. A little stronger. A little more open. A little more ready to let the next moment in. You don't need to rush. You don't need to move on. You just need to move with it. Grief doesn't need fixing. It needs witnessing. And the loop? It won't last forever. Eventually, what once broke you becomes part of your rhythm. A slow, steady beat beneath your new beginning. But some beginnings feel incomplete. Because the story didn't end properly. Because someone walked out without turning the last page. Because the apology never came. We're taught to wait. To hold space for explanations. To believe that closure is something offered. Like a gift. By the one who hurt us. But real life rarely wraps itself that neatly. Sometimes the people who hurt you never admit it. Never realize it. Never care. And you're left carrying the weight of something they've already forgotten. That's the ache of unresolved endings. They don't end. They echo. They loop. So we carry them. Through relationships. Through decades. Through the quiet moments. When it should have stopped hurting by now. Forgiveness, then. It becomes something else entirely. Not a reconciliation. Not a reunion. Not a warm hug after the storm. Forgiveness, real forgiveness, is when you say, you don't need to be sorry for me to stop suffering. It's when you release someone who may never even realize they were held. Not for them, but for you. Because carrying pain is a form of loyalty we don't talk about. We cling to it. thinking it makes us stronger. That remembering means we're protecting ourselves. That if we let go, we're excusing what they did. But forgiveness isn't forgetting. And it's not pretending. And it's definitely not approval. Forgiveness is the decision to stop feeding the flame of a memory that's been burning you alive. It's turning away from the door that will never open and realizing you're still here. You survived. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is, "I deserve better. I will give that to myself now." Because closure isn't something you wait for. It's something you create. It doesn't arrive. You build it. From the wreckage, you sit with your pain until it stops screaming. You water the soil where nothing grew until something does. You wake up one day and you realize the ache is still there, but it doesn't own you anymore. You've made peace without permission, and that is power. But there's something deeper beneath that peace, something more difficult than forgiving another person, something quieter but heavier. It's forgiving yourself for who you used to be. Because when you let go of pain, you're not just releasing the story someone wrote about you. You're letting go of the version of yourself who believed that story, the one who stayed too long, the one who didn't fight back, the one who smiled when it hurt, the one who clung to the wrong thing because it was something in a world that offered nothing. And here's the truth. That person? They saved you. They got you through nights you didn't think you'd survive. They kept you afloat when the world went dark. They gave you what they could with what little they had. But they're not you anymore. And that's terrifying. Because identity, it feels permanent, like a signature etched into your soul. We say things like, "I'm just not that kind of person," or "I've always been this way." But have you? Or is that just the version of you that made sense in the chaos you were born into? We build ourselves around what we needed to survive. And sometimes survival requires armor. But what protected you back then might be suffocating you now. Your independence, your defensiveness, your need to be liked, your fear of vulnerability. They didn't come out of nowhere. They were built brick by brick, experience by experience, a map through danger. But now, you're walking different roads, and the armor is heavy. What no one tells you is that growth often feels like grief. Not because you're broken, but because you're shedding skins you thought were permanent. You're saying goodbye to identities that served you. And that means facing what those identities were covering. Because under every label is a question we don't like to ask. Who am I if I'm not this? Who am I without the trauma? Without the struggle? Without the role I played to keep the peace? Who am I if I'm no longer that strong one, the quiet one, the fixer, that failure? There's a loneliness in letting go of identity Not because you're becoming nothing, but because you're stepping into the unknown. And the unknown is always lonely at first. But within that void is the only place you'll ever meet your real self. The one who isn't defined by pain or performance. The one who doesn't need to be anything but present. It takes courage to become someone new, to walk away from a self that once felt like home. But you're allowed to change, even if no one else understands it, even if they liked you better before, even if you don't fully recognize yourself yet. Because that discomfort you're feeling, it's not failure, it's birth. And all transformation starts in the dark. But what happens next is where the science begins. Because your brain, it's not fixed. It isn't a machine with static wiring. It's more like a living sculpture, constantly reshaping itself based on what you do, what you feel, and what you believe. This isn't just poetic. It's biological. It's called neuroplasticity. Your brain's ability to rewire itself over time. And that rewiring, it's happening right now. Every thought you repeat, every story you revisit, every emotion you rehearse, you're reinforcing neural pathways. It's like carving a trail through a dense forest. The more you walk that path, the easier it becomes to follow. That's why pain can feel permanent. Not because it is, but because it's well practiced. Your brain doesn't always prioritize what's true. It prioritizes what's familiar. If you've lived in survival mode, your nervous system gets used to scanning for threats. You become fluent in fear. You anticipate loss before love. You flinch at kindness, because it reminds you of what kindness should have felt like. But here's the wild part. You can change that. Not overnight. Not with a quote on Instagram. But with intention. With repetition. With patience. See, unlearning isn't just forgetting. It's replacing. It's walking a new path. So many times that the old one fades beneath the grass. It's choosing calm when your brain expects chaos. It's pausing before reacting the way you always have. It's saying, I don't have to be that person anymore. And then proving it. One tiny choice at a time. It's not glamorous. It won't look good on camera. It won't always feel like a breakthrough. But it works. Neurons that fire together, wire together. And the more you practice peace, even in moments where it feels fake, the more your brain starts to believe it's real. The science of letting go isn't about forgetting the past. It's about retraining the present. Your brain was built to adapt. It's trying to protect you. Sometimes too much. But when you show it, again and again, that you're safe now, something incredible happens. The loops start to slow. The panic finds pause. The flashbacks soften. The tension begins to melt. Not all at once, but enough to breathe. Enough to rest. Enough to imagine something else. Because neuroplasticity doesn't care how long you've been this way. It doesn't ask how old you are. It doesn't check if you deserve healing. It just listens. It listens to the signals you send it. Through your thoughts, your behaviors, your choices. And when those signals change, so do you. This is how we become. Not by erasing who we were, but by choosing. Gently, deliberately, and imperfectly, who we're ready to be next. So let the old paths grow over. Let the old stories unravel. Let the memories remain. But remove their crown. They do not rule you. You are not your history. You are not your patterns. You are not your pain on repeat. You are a brain, and a body, and a soul, capable of rewriting the code. And that is the beginning of freedom. If you're still listening, you're not just hearing this. You're feeling it. And that means something inside you is shifting. Something in you is ready to loosen its grip. You didn't get here by accident. You've stayed because some part of you knows. It's time. Time to rest. Time to release. Time to surrender. But not in the way you might think. Let's take a breath here. You've come a long way. From control, to pain, to unlearning. But now comes the question that haunts even the bravest among us. If I let go, does that mean I've failed? Letting go often feels like giving up. We're told that to surrender is weakness. That to stop fighting means you've lost. That to accept is to settle. But that isn't surrender. That's defeat. Real surrender isn't the collapse of effort. It's the redirection of effort. It's the moment you stop pouring your energy into what cannot be changed and start channeling it into what can. Giving up is rooted in hopelessness. Surrender is rooted in wisdom. Giving up says, "This hurts too much. I can't do it anymore." Surrender says, "This hurts, and I no longer wish to carry it like this." There's a difference. One is resignation. The other is release. When you surrender, you are not abandoning yourself. You are returning to yourself. You're choosing to set down the armor. Not because you're too weak to carry it, but because you finally understand that it was never keeping you safe. That armor? The constant vigilance? The pressure to hold it all together? It served you once, but it's heavy now. And you're tired. Maybe you've been taught that struggle means you care. That rest is for those who haven't tried hard enough. But here's the truth you may need to hear. You are allowed to stop fighting. You are allowed to choose ease. Even if chaos feels more familiar. You are allowed to surrender. Not to defeat, but to reality. Because when we resist reality, we suffer. We brace against what is. We replay scenarios in our head. We rewrite conversations that already happened. We reach for doors that have long since closed. But reality doesn't negotiate. And your nervous system wasn't designed for endless friction. So what if, just for this moment, you stopped resisting? What if you whispered to yourself, "I'm not giving up. I'm just letting go." Letting go of being right. Letting go of understanding why. Letting go of how it should have gone. And what it would have meant. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you honest. It makes you human. See, the paradox of surrender is that it often gives you back more power than control ever could. Because when you surrender, you reclaim your energy. You're no longer spinning in circles, trying to fix what won't bend. You're not chained to outcomes you can't reach. You begin to move with life, instead of against it. And sometimes, that's when everything shifts. Not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped gripping it. This doesn't mean you stop caring, or that you become passive. It means you learn to trust yourself, your process, your ability to adapt. Surrender is not silence. It's a different kind of voice. It doesn't scream. It exhales. It says, I did my part. Now I release the rest. That's not weakness. That's mastery. So as you move forward, through grief, through uncertainty, through the quiet ache of what could have been, remember this. There is strength in surrender. There is dignity in choosing peace. There is wisdom in letting the current carry you. When your arms are too tired to swim, you are not lost. You are just learning how to float. Not everything that breaks is a failure. Sometimes it's just the first sound of freedom. And when that sound reaches your brain, something extraordinary begins. Because surrender doesn't just feel like a shift. It is one. Your brain physically changes when you let go. Not metaphorically. Not symbolically. Literally. Regions associated with hypervigilance, fear, and emotional memory, like the amygdala and the anterior cingulate cortex, begin to quiet. The neural pathways that once fired with every memory, every replay, every "a what if" and "I should have," they begin to dim. Think of them like trails in a forest. Each time you ruminate, you walk that same trail again. You reinforce it. You deepen it. You make it easier for your brain to go back there. But when you stop, when you release, when you say, "This doesn't belong to me anymore," you stop walking that path. And slowly, nature takes over. This is neuroplasticity, your brain's quiet superpower. It prunes what you no longer use, and it strengthens what you nurture. So if you begin to lean into peace, into presence, into sleep, your brain will meet you there. New neural connections begin to bloom in regions like the prefrontal cortex, the place where calm, clarity, and compassion live. Even default mode network activity, that wandering hum of self-referential thought, can settle like snow in a glass dome. In clinical studies, this shift is seen in trauma recovery, in deep meditation, in forgiveness work, even in psilocybin therapy. The pattern is the same. When we let go, we make space. Space for insight. Space for peace. Space to be someone new. And the more we practice this, not once, but over and over, the easier it becomes. Letting go is not a one-time event. It's a neurobiological process. It's not just what you do. It's who you become. So if you feel tired right now, if your body is softening, if your mind feels slower than before, That's not weakness. That's your brain beginning to heal. You've interrupted the loop. You've given yourself a pause. And from a neuroscience perspective, that pause is revolutionary. Now let's go even deeper. Because this isn't just about neurons. This is about the fabric of reality itself. The truth is, everything lets go. Not out of choice, but because of a law so fundamental. It shapes the universe itself. Entropy. In physics, entropy is the measure of disorder. The tendency for systems to move from order to chaos. From structure to dispersion. From tight fists to open palms. A hot cup of tea cools. A wave crashes and disappears. A star burns out. Everything in nature, given enough time, releases its energy, its tension, its identity, not as a flaw, as a feature. Letting go is not weakness. It is physics. And the same principle lives inside you. Your thoughts try to hold on. But your body knows better. Your lungs exhale. Your skin sheds. Your cells die and regenerate. Your brain rewires. You are a living system of release. Even your memories fade. Not as betrayal, but as protection. Even your emotions pass. Not because they were wrong, but because no wave can crest forever. You might say, but I'm scared of letting go. What if I forget? What if I disappear? But look around. The stars you see tonight are light from a past that no longer exists. And yet, here it is, shining anyway. Letting go doesn't erase meaning. It reveals it. Because when you release what was, you're not falling into nothing. You're falling into now. And now is where everything happens. Where time slows. Where thoughts soften. Where silence becomes symphony. The same physics that pulls galaxies apart also holds atoms together. Destruction and creation. Always dancing. Just like you. Learning, unlearning, rebecoming. So the next time you feel a relationship unravel, a dream dissolve, a version of yourself vanish, don't rush to fix it. Don't panic. Just breathe. Because this is the universe doing what it's always done. Releasing, rearranging, renewing. And in that quiet collapse, you may just find something new. Not a version of yourself you've lost, but a self you've never met. Let's stay here a while. No rush. Just you and this moment. Stillness. Breath. A gentle awareness settling like dust in sunlight. Because by now, you've stopped listening with your ears. You're feeling this with your whole body. Letting it land. Letting it echo. Let's begin with a truth you've always known. You don't move on. Not really. You dissolve. And then you reform. The person who loved, who grieved, who clung so tightly to what was. They don't vanish. They transform. Somewhere deep inside you, there is a version of yourself still holding on. Still replaying the memory. Still asking what if. Still hoping for closure that may never arrive. You've met them in dreams. in old songs, in quiet moments before sleep. But tonight, you don't have to wrestle with them. You don't need to fix or change or erase. You only need to witness them, see them, thank them, and let them rest. Because they helped you survive. And now you're learning to live. That's what this is. Not an escape. Not a forgetting. But an unfolding. A becoming. It doesn't happen all at once. Sometimes it looks like drinking water again. Or texting a friend. Or laughing and catching yourself mid-sentence thinking, I forgot I could still feel this way. Sometimes healing sneaks up on you. Not with fireworks, but with a quiet "oh, I'm okay." Letting go isn't about triumph. It's about truth. The truth that you are still here. Different, maybe, but here. And if you're here, you still have time to rebuild, to reimagine, to rest. Maybe you haven't forgiven them yet. Maybe you haven't forgiven yourself. Maybe you're still learning how. That's okay. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're becoming. You're becoming someone who doesn't just survive the past, but grows through it. Who doesn't just walk away, but walks forward. And tonight, that forward begins in stillness. You don't have to have the answers. You don't have to feel brave. You only have to exhale. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let that thought you've been gripping float away, just for now. You can pick it up tomorrow if you need to. Right now. It's safe to rest. Maybe this is the first time in a long while you've let someone speak to the part of you that hides behind "I'm fine." The part that is tired, tender, ready. Let me tell you something that most people don't say. You've done so well. Even on the days you didn't feel it. Even when no one saw it. You kept going. And that counts for more than you know. So now, as your thoughts begin to blur, and your body settles into quiet, ask yourself, what am I ready to release? What story? What name? What shame? And who might I become without it? You don't need to answer now. Just ask. And let that question float with you into sleep. And if this helped you, if something in your chest feels a little lighter, if you found yourself breathing differently, we make more stories like this. More whispers for the soul. More quiet awakenings. So come back when you're ready. We'll be here. Good night. And let go.